All right. Let's talk about this. In number 1, before we do parts A and part B, what's the formula that I need to be using for this? One. R over N to the power of NT. Yes. Yep. What does the capital P stand for? Starting amount, principal. So what would the principal be for both parts A and B? 700. So I can start writing this down. It's going to be exactly the same for both of these, except for one piece. And if you do not have a calculator, you absolutely need a calculator for today. All right, so I have 700, and then it's parentheses 1 plus on both of these. Where do I go looking for the numerator of that fraction for R? 1.6, yes, the rate. Do I use 1.6 in the problem? You got to divide it by how much? 100. Why 100? Because that's what cancels out the percent sign. So we're going to divide it by 100%. That makes the percent sign cancel out, which means what we're left with is just R. What is 1.6 divided by 100?
0.016.
0.016. This is what we're going to use for R. So this is the numerator of the fraction on both of these. There is one other thing that's exactly the same for both of these parts. What will it be? One other thing that's going to be the same on both of these. We already got R. The year, the time. What is our time? 6 years. So this is T. So it's N times T. N times T. We have to figure out what we're using for N, and that's what's going to be different on these two. It's always how many times in a year. So if it says quarterly, how many times in a year will it happen? 4. N is 4. So that goes on the bottom of my fraction, and it gets multiplied to the 6 years. Let's pause right there for a second and pop that in your calculator. Absolutely. You're welcome. There you go, guys. You are going to need a calculator for today, so if you don't have one, you need to come up and get one. It was up on the screen when you walked in. Come up and get a calculator, please. What do you get when you type this into the calculator? For the first one.
I got 770. I got about 2 minutes.
770, 38. Guys, make sure you typed in exactly like it shows on the screen. 770 and 38 cents. If it's not an exponent, it makes an enormous difference. The 4 times 6 has to be an exponent. Let me see. What's the 4 times 6 in 4 times 6 yeah. The 4 times 6 has to be in the exponent. If it is not in the exponent, it is going to give you a vastly different number.
I don't understand. I didn't really understand. Oh. Yeah, I didn't put the Bro, you're blind.
Be nice. Right.
He's being nice. I'm actually blind.
So this is what you should have for number 1. What's the only thing that's going to be different on number 2? Not just the denominator.
It's going to be the n.
Yes, the n value.
Back and I did this one and I got 4.
You didn't put a decimal up here.
Hey.
Yep.
That too.
Yep. If it says it is compounded daily, remember this is how many times in a year? 365. N is 365. So that goes on the bottom of the fraction, and it gets multiplied to the time, 6 years. Please make sure that the 365 times 6 is in the exponent. If it's not up in the exponent, it will not give you the right answer. It should not be a huge number. Nope.
Did I do it wrong?
Yeah, you have to change n in both places. N shows up in 2 spots.
Bro. It's the small stuff.
Yep. All right. Please make sure that you change n in both the denominator of the fraction inside the parentheses and in the exponent.
770
Yep. 52, 53. Remember, if you're off by a penny from me, I'm not going to take off points. So depending on how you round, it's 52 or 53 cents. Depends. Probably not. Yes, ma'am. I do. Mm-hmm. All right. Curious. When you compound more times in a year, what happens to the final amount? When you compound more times in a year, what happens to the final amount? It gets bigger. In this case, did it get much bigger?
No.
No. Depending on what that interest amount is, it could get a lot bigger. Yeah, here it's only like 15 cents.
I don't know what happened.
All right.
Miss Bo, is he in the right class?
Yes. Number 2. Number 2. What does it ask us to do here?
Describe
Describe the
the transformation.
transformations. You have to use words here. Arrows won't count. You have to describe what A, H, and K are doing. It's important to know what your base is because your base will not affect your transformations. I saw this happen a lot on the 7-1 skills check, which I'm going to pass back to you guys here in just a couple minutes. Your base does not affect the transformations. What is the base on part A? 3. How do we know when we're looking at it what the base is? It has an exponent on it. This will not do anything to the transformed graph. What is this -2 out in front? That's A. This particular A value is going to do 2 different things to my graph. Why is it doing 2 and not just 1 like everything else? Because it's a negative. So it reflects. It reflects over what? The x-axis. To just write reflect will not get full points. You have to say reflect over x-axis. All right, so that's what the negative part of the number is doing to it. If I ignore the negative part and I just look at the 2, what is that going to do to the graph? That's going to vertically stretch it. So vertically stretched by 2. All right, so that's A. Who else do we need to go looking for? H and K. What is our H value? 5. Right here, what I see, that -5, that is the opposite of H. So H is actually 5. What will that do to my graph if H is 5? H goes side to side because the X, it's next to the X, and the X axis goes side to side. Right 5. And then you said what? Up 1, because why? That is our K value, yes. That's going to shift it up 1. If my A value is 1, that is not different from the parent. If my A value is 1, it will not stretch it, it will not compress it. If your base is a fraction or a decimal, it's not going to compress it because the base doesn't do that. The A value stretches or compresses. Yes, ma'am?
What does the base do?
The base tells me what my parent function is. So like on this one, my base is 4. And so I know the parent is y equals 4 to the x. No A, no H, no K. That's my parent. The A, H, and K tells me how it is different from this parent function. Does that make sense? Okay. On part B, we said the base is 4, or I said the base is 4. What is the A value? What's our A value on number 2, part B? 0.5. Notice we're always multiplying by A. We're always multiplying this value. If I multiply something by 0.5, does that give me something that's bigger or something that's smaller? Smaller. So would this be a vertical stretch or a vertical compression? Compression. So this is going to be vertically compressed by 0.5. Do we have an H value?
Yeah, it's -2.
It's -2. Right here is the opposite of H. So H is -2. What will that do to my graph? How will it transform it?
So left to
Left 2. Do I have a K value? No, which means K is what if I don't have a K value? K is 0. So I'm not going up, I'm not going down. I don't need to describe that in my transformation because it's not different from the parent. Good. Do you guys have any questions for me about the bell work? All right. We are going to go over the very, very last piece that we need to for Module 7. I passed these notes out on Wednesday, the 7-3 notes. Please go ahead and pull those out. This has the last thing that we're going to do, the 7-3 notes. I passed them out on Wednesday last week. Does anybody need an extra copy? There you go. You're welcome. Does anybody else need an extra copy of the 7-3 notes? All right. So that third page, last thing that we need to cover should look like this up at the top. Right there. Does anybody else need an extra copy of the notes? Should say 7.3 up at the top, special functions. Special exponential functions, yep. Right there, the E notes.
Thank you.
You're welcome, we're on the 3rd page. All right. We're going to look at formulas, function rules that have this special number E in it. On the Bell work, we had stuff that was compounded quarterly, compounded daily. That's when we used this formula with the N in it. If we have something that is compounding continuously, we use this formula instead. Or what?
The formula is gonna be on.
Yes, but it won't tell you which formula to use on which problem.
Okay.
So you'll get all the formulas. You don't have to memorize those, but you do have to know when to use each of them. All right, so let's break this down and make sure that we understand all of the pieces. Do you need another one, dear? Yeah? Okay. I'm going to go with because you violently yanked it out of your bag.
Just a little happy for that today.
Okay. All right, so let's break down all the pieces. What does the A mean? The big capital A here? Amount in the account. What do you think the capital P stands for? Starting amount. Yes, this is the principal or the starting amount. The E is not a variable. We will not substitute anything in the place of E. This is the number E. Do you guys remember on Friday I showed you how to find the number E on your calculator, just like pi is on the calculator? All right, how do you get to the number E on the calculator? Second and LN, which is 2 buttons below the E. So we are not substituting in a number for E. E is a number. E is a special number that we talked about on the very front part of these notes. What does the R stand for, do you think? The rate. Yep. Just like on the last couple problems. So we do R% divided by 100% to get what we're going to use for R. And last but not least, what do you think T means? Time. All right, let's do example 3, compound interest. LaShondra deposited $1,500 in a savings account that pays 2.5% annual interest compounded continuously. After 4 years, what will be the balance of LaShondra's account? Part A says to write a function rule. Whenever we need to write a function or a function rule, that means A and T, the final amount, and the time, will stay variables. They're going to stay letters. We're not going to substitute anything in for them. Mm-hmm. Yes, you may. All right, that means that my function rule has to start with an A equals. What is going to come after the A equals? What comes after the A equals? The P. What is our P? What is the principal? 1,500. Whatever they deposit is what they start with. So this is P. Do I put parentheses in a 1 plus?
Yeah.
No. Yes, it was. We're going to put E. Why are we putting E? Because we're supposed to. How do you know from the problem that we're supposed to use E? What's the key word that we're supposed to look for? I have a box around it up at the top. Continuously. When you see continuously, that means to use E.
Is there any other words besides continuously? Is that the only one?
Continuously, you use E. Nothing else will make you use the E. Has to be continuously. If you see monthly, daily, weekly, quarterly, annually, we're not going to use the E. Only when you see that word continuously. What else do I need for my function rule?
The R and T.
I need the R. Where do I go looking for the R? What symbol lets me know I've found R? Percent. So I have 2.5%. What do I need to do so that I can use it in my formula? Divide it by 100. 2.5% divided by 100%. That makes my percent signs cancel out. And I get what? 0.025. Here's the value for R. I'm going to make a mistake, and I want you guys to tell me what that mistake is. It's supposed to be an exponent. Do not write it off to the side like that. It's supposed to be a little thing up here. Needs to be part of the exponent when you put it into your calculator. What else do I need so that this is a function rule? T. Do I sub anything in for T?
Yes.
No, times it by no.
No. Why not?
Oh, that's
Yeah. In a function rule, we leave the letters A and T. Function rule, we do not substitute anything in the place of T. Now, when I get down to part B, what do I do? Down in part B is where we substitute. What are we substituting in for T in part B? 4. So I use all the information that I had from part A. Except up here with that 0.025, I'm going to multiply it by 4. Grab your calculators and evaluate this. Very nicely done. You got it.
Do I do the times 4 times 0.25 first?
Do you do what?
0.25 times 4 first before I what the whole equation is?
You can if you want to, or you can put it up in the exponent. It'll allow you to put all of that as the exponent.
How do I put the G?
The green button. So start off with the 1500. Okay, and then the green button and LN. What do you get when you pop it in the calculator? 1657.75, 0.76. Again, if you're off by a penny, I don't care. What did I forget? The dollar sign. So, questions that I was asked last period that were really good questions. If I ask you to write a function rule and you don't put the t there, will I take off points? Yes. In your final answer, if you don't put the dollar sign, will I take off points? No. The t is an absolutely essential part of a function rule. You have to have two unknown things. You have to have two variables, or else it is not a function rule. What questions do you guys have for me before we go on to the next one? All right. The problem down at the bottom where it says check, I want you guys to work on that one on your own, and then we're going to go through it together. I'm going to give us about 3-4 minutes to work independently. Then we'll go through it together, and that'll wrap us up for the day. Next one, on your page.
It takes like 2 seconds.
Cool. Write me a function rule, and then do part B. Guys, you need to do both parts A and B on the check problem.
Oh, just run it. What do you need tape for? How much you need this? Oh, oops. Oh, oops.
Mm-hmm. Looks good so far. Now just do this one.
So I just put E right here, right? And the R is this, right?
Divide it by 100, and then it's that, yes.
But where's the T?
You don't have that. Remember, function rule has the T right there.
Oh, so I have to do this and then I get the T?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm curious. Have you ever just not been able to read a student's handwriting?
Have I not been able to what?
Just read a student's handwriting. It was so bad, like you just couldn't read it.
I have had that happen exactly one time.
One time.
Yep.
But like it's with numbers, so how? It was that bad.
Mm-hmm. And it was kind of all over the page.
Oh.
So I couldn't follow what they were trying to do because there was like a couple numbers here and a couple numbers there, and like I could not follow it.
That's the only job she should have.
Part A, what are we supposed to do? Write a function rule. What does that mean for what I'm getting ready to write? A and T need to stay letters. We are not going to substitute in anything for A or for T. So I have A equals, what would come next? 4,500. That's the invested amount. That's our principal. And whether I'm doing one like the bell work or one like we just did up above, P always comes next. Do I do parentheses and a 1 plus on this one, or do I do the E? How do we know? It says continuously. Whenever you see continuously, that means to use E. So E. What comes next?
The time. I mean the rate.
The rate. Where do I go looking for the rate? Percent sign. What do I have to do to it? Divide it by 100%. So the percent signs cancel out. And that gives me what? When I divide it by 100 on my calculator?
0.125.
0.125. That's our rate, R. Where does that go here? In the exponent. Whenever we use E, the rate is an exponent. When we use the parentheses and 1 plus, R is the numerator of our fraction. All right, what else do I need? Time, which is T. Up here it's T. Remember, A and T stay letters. All right, so then I come down to the bottom, and the bottom has 2 parts to it. How do I do this part? We put the 5 in the place of T. All right, so I've got this, and then I take it times 5. What do you get when you use 5 years? 8,407, and how many cents? 10 cents. What about for the one on the bottom? What's the only thing that's going to be different? The T is 12 years this time. So I have it like this, but then times 12.
How do you know what we write?
Hmm?
Like we just be saying answers and you just know we right. Oh, no.
You guys had work time? I popped it in my calculator while you were doing it. So after 12 years, how much money does Alejandro have? 20,167 and 60 cents. Nice.
I don't have to say numbers like that.
Honestly, if you just want to say what all the digits are and then tell me where the decimal point is, that's fine.
20,000.
Yep. Do you guys have any questions for me on our lesson today? How do you know from what the problem says whether we use the E or the 1 plus R over N? If it says continuously use the E, how do we know when to use N then?
It has an annual daily increase though.
Annual, it's going to have the word compounded just like this, but then it'll say annually, daily, weekly. If it doesn't have an LY word in it, it doesn't say continuously or annually or daily or weekly or monthly, use the normal one. 1 plus R or 1 minus R if it's going down. All right. Who was not here on Friday? Not here on Friday. Because if you were not here on Friday, you don't have this, and this was due, or this is due tomorrow. Seven 3 homework on McGraw-Hill was due on Friday. This part 2 on paper, we learned how to do the first 2 questions on Friday. Now you can do the bottom 2 questions on here. So if you weren't here on Friday, you'll need to go and get the notes so that you know how to do the top 2 questions. This is due tomorrow. You can either turn it in to me on paper, or you can snap a picture and upload it to Canvas. Either one is fine. The stapled piece of paper that you guys picked up when you came in the room. This is your review for the test. When is the test? 17th. When is the 17th? It's Friday. We were supposed to have our test on Thursday, but last Thursday on parent-teacher night, like right in the middle of it all, I got an email saying that we have a convocation schedule, which means for everything except 5th period, we're not going to be in class the full amount of time.
Yay.
So I bumped the test back a day so that everybody gets a full class period to do the test. This Friday we have a test. Convocation is on Thursday. What is a convocation? There's a Black History performance. Black History convocation on Thursday. That'll be at the end of your 3rd period class. Some classes will be going down to the Performing Arts Center to watch that. Other classes will be watching it in their rooms on the boards. Yep, Black History Club is doing it.
Ms. Brooke, can you help me check that?
Absolutely, I can.